Okay, guys. So pretty soon here, in the next few weeks, if not sooner, I'm going to be doing an update on my little rear mount system here. Got made a lot of headway on it, and but one thing I don't want to do is through the course of this, I'm trying to make this not only specific to S series, and with a rear mount turbo system, it's not really specific to any car. You just got to fit it up in there and make it work. It's universal, basically. But sometimes in some of these help videos and stuff, it's more of a, hey, look what I did, and then just you drag your phone across the turbo, you drag your phone across your engine bay, and it ends up being nothing more than a, look what I can do moment. It reminds me of that Mad TV skit where Stewart says, look what I can do. And but if you're really going to help people and to where they don't run into some real complications later, yeah, be a little bit more thorough. Kind of talk about why you did certain things. This little update here is going to be talking about PCV system, positive crankcase ventilation. If you're running natural aspirated, you got to worry about it. If you're putting a turbo on your car, yeah, you do. You do not want boost getting into your valve cover while you're boosting. You should be able to block that off somehow. And you stop that at the PCV. So the PCV normally, this valve here, it has like a little crooked neck hose that connects it to the port coming right off the center of the intake manifold. And during idle, okay, so non-boost obviously, this valve is going to be open and it's going to be sucking in the basically the oil vapor which comes up from the bottom of the engine. So you have some blow by go by the rings of your pistons. That's normal. Some cars have more than others. If the car's newer, it's going to have less than a car that's older. On cars that are running turbo and nitrous, you might have gapped your rings a little bit wider, which you're supposed to do. And during cold start, maybe you're going to have a little bit more fuel and air slipping past those rings until the engine warms up and kind of pushes out against the cylinder walls tighter. Well, that vapor goes down to the crankcase and it meanders up, just, obviously rises through the cylinder head up into your valve cover. And you need to evacuate that out of there. And that's what the PCV system's supposed to do. It pulls it out, takes it right back into the intake manifold, and brings it down into the combustion chamber. And it's a second attempt, basically, to burn the hydrocarbons in there. At wide open throttle, there's there's a little, it's a spring in here that opens and closes, and it just basically opens and closes the amount that of the vacuum it's seeing. So on a boosted situation though, where you're pressurizing your intake manifold, yeah, it's all fine and good to have it going this way, the vapors, but you don't want the pressure coming in here and getting into your valve cover and pressurizing that valve cover. So the way to stop it is to run a PCV system that keeps that from happening. Now, doing the rear mount system, who better to go to see if you're doing it right than STS, Squire Turbo System. So I know they're not going to really divulge any information, more likely to help me make a kit to circumvent buying one of theirs, which, keep in mind, this is all just universal. It's universal stuff being applied to your individual car. You just got to find creative ways to hang it in the back somehow. Make a way to get meander around your suspension, your subframes, and all that good stuff. Outside of that, everything else is universal. So, but I get it. They're trying to protect their system and all the work that they put into it and the thought process and all that good stuff, yada yada. So, but I was able to get the PDF guide online, and you can probably find it too if you hunt for it, the STS Turbo PDF. And in it, it kind of gives you some guidelines on what to do regarding the PCV system, where to pull the signal for your wastegate. They give a couple different options. I will be going over that too. And then selecting which one you want to go with. Both ways makes it happen. One way is, in my mind, one way is better than the other, and I'll explain that when we get to the wastegate. But in regards to PCV, they kind of have like an elaborate system when maybe in the end they should have just went the route that I did. But they talk about you purchasing, or in the kit, they have a valve like this, okay? Now this valve, they actually pull this sticker off and they put one of their STS stickers on there. But this thing is basically what you'd find in like an old Ford or Chevy truck, and it's meant to divert, like if you have saddle tanks, dual tank systems, it's meant to get the flow going over to the other tank. And the part number for this, in case you end up going the route that they want you to, this is a standard part, and the part number is a Frank Victor 1 Tango. Okay, another number you might try to cross, Victor 19232, if for some reason the place you go to doesn't have standard parts. But usually any good parts house will be able to take that number and cross it into something usable for you. Okay, so that part, they then have you use this in conjunction with a pressure switch, a 1 psi pressure switch. Now many of these, they call them Hobbs switches. A lot of them are in nitrous kits. You can actually tune a lot of them. There's a rubber plug on the end of it. You pull that plug off, use a little screwdriver, and you can counterclockwise or clockwise rotate it, and it'll change the PSI that it activates at. So on the one that comes with, say, like a nitrous system, many times, say for instance, if it's going to be on a car that, say a carbureted car where the fuel pressure, 5 to 7 PSI. So in that case, you'd want to open it up and make it, put it to where it's going to be sensitive to 1 PSI. As soon as you start seeing boost, that switch sends a signal to this solenoid. And this is kind of like a little actuator, nitro solenoid, whatever you want to call it. It makes a switch in here whenever that happens. So this port here, and this is all in the STS guide. They identify the ports. They tell you where each wants you to go. This port here will go, he'll have a filter on it. And then this is the main travel that it's going to be to divert the PCV under boost. Now, you could do all that, but in the end, the goal is what? Keep boost from getting into your valve cover, and that's handled with this piece here. This is a PCV valve from a Mazda Speed 3. I picked the latest year they had it. But what I then did was, if you know Mazdas, you know Ford kind of was in bed with them for a long time. So if you need a part for a Mazda and you can't readily find it, kind of think of what the counterpart for that year model vehicle would be. Say like for a Ford Escape, you might look for a Mazda Tribute, you might look for a Ford Escape. But of course, Ford Escape isn't going to have a turbo on it where you can get this valve. But just to give you an idea, and the reason I bring that up is because sure enough, this valve here, if you cross that number, Edward Victor 274, that's the Motorcraft number. So that's like a number you could walk into O'Reilly's or Advance, anyone that might carry Motorcraft parts, give them that number, and this is the valve you'll get. That number, the second number, 4 Lima 5 Zebra 6 Apple 666 Baker Apple, that's the official Ford part number. So you could actually go to Ford and get it if you can't find it at some local parts house. Man, this thing's like $6, $7, $8, I think it was. I just tested this. This one doesn't, but this one here, I put 20 pounds in here and it didn't come out that end. This because this was for a Mazda Speed 3 turbo, and that system's designed to keep the boost out of the valve cover or the crankcase. So I mean, you already got some coming up from the bottom, like I just described to you here a little bit ago. You don't need to add more to it. That's combustible gases, backfiring can happen, stuff like that. So, and the PCV is actually supposed to help keep the backfiring stuff down as well. But in the end, this will work for you. And I measured the circumference from this rib here, which is where it stabs down into the grommet on the valve cover. Now keep in mind, if there's a difference, I'm not sure, but this is for a 97, 95, kind of like the old aluminum valve covers on the dual red cams. So the grommet measures about 0.85. So does this. So this ought to, I just tested it, it slapped in there, okay. So just a little tidbit there, instead of going through all this stuff, which, you know, I think on my turbo setup before this one, I didn't have anything going on with the PCV. And I have to admit, at idle, didn't idle all that well. I mean, it idled strong and good and all that stuff, but there was a little blips and stuff like that. But that will happen if you don't have the PCV system set up right. But at any rate, I just want to share that with you. Like I said, this little tidbit mixed with a bunch of little other, miscellaneous tidbits, as well as, showing you the exhaust system's fully done. It'll be wrapped with the header wrap. The wastegate will be installed. I'll show you what I'm doing with all this stuff here. And so it'll look pretty trick. It's looking pretty good. I went a little bit different way with the inlet to the turbo with the filter and everything. I'll show you that too. But it's getting close, very close actually. Hopefully within the next couple to few weeks, I ought to have it up and running, out on the road doing some just street tuning. And I'm going to start it with the Veggie regulator like I had before, because I'm going to install the unit chip like I said I was going to, but I want to get this thing up and running, check it, make sure everything's good to go, see how this rear mount turbo responds, because how it responds is going to dictate to me what kind of wheels and tires I put on the front, actually all the way around more or less. But for traction purposes, if the thing's a dog off the line because the turbo's too big or something like that, then I'm going to go with a smaller rim, wider tire obviously. If boost is there where I need it, and so on and so forth. I'll explain all that later. But anyway, just want to throw this out there. EV274, you'll need it if you're going to run a boost situation on your Sati, and you're going to keep the boost out of the valve cover.